Okay, so today we're talking about a 6.5 turbo diesel, how to make it really bulletproof and reliable. So these are great trucks, but back in the day they were not great trucks, and that's because General Motors made a lot of errors. Detroit Diesel built this engine, but General Motors used it, and then they added a bunch of stuff and made it a bad engine. So back 20 years ago, they were not reliable and they got a bad reputation, but they're actually great engines. They're great trucks. I own my own business. I work 8 days a week, and so does this truck. I drive about 1,000 miles a week, and I'm about to run through how I made this truck reliable to allow me to use it for my daily driver, for my work truck. I do a lot of towing, a lot of hauling, and it's great. I love this truck. So let's get to it. Here's how to make your truck bulletproof or reliable. So let's start, and I'm gonna list these in the order of importance. So we're gonna start with the starter. So the starter on these actually causes problems because of the way it's mounted. You got two bolts run to an ear of the block, and every time you start the truck, that starter is real torquey, so it jerks a little bit. And what can happen over time is it could break that ear of the block off. And now your block is garbage. You have to buy a new engine. So number one, the first thing to replace or install is this starter bracket. So this starter bracket goes on the front of the starter. You do not have to remove the starter to install this. So what you can do is look in your passenger wheel well at the starter and see if you can see this bracket that should be installed on the front of your starter. One bolt goes to the starter and the other bolt goes to the block. And this will help compensate for that torque. It'll absorb the torque instead of the ear of your block. And that way you can protect your engine. You don't have to replace your engine because you don't have a little support bracket. So number one, get this. Okay, number two, these are known for breaking camshafts and crankshafts. And the reason for that is because of the harmonic balancer and because of the crankshaft pulley. These are both built and designed the same way. So let's say you have the harmonic balancer. They're three-piece units. One, you have the center metal piece, then you have a rubber ring, and then you have a metal outer ring. And that rubber over time, it wears out. Well, the job of the harmonic balancer is to absorb and compensate for all the little impurities, all the little extra vibrations of the engine, the harmonics of the engine, and make it run smoother. Well, these stock balancer and crankshaft pulley, they're junk. The rubber breaks down and they separate and they clunk, and it can sound like your engine is knocking, but it might be just your harmonic balancer or crankshaft pulley. So replace both the balancer and pulley. There's a great balancer that I installed. It's called a fluid dampener, and then the pulley is just a one-piece aluminum pulley, and that will save your crankshaft and your camshaft from breaking. So that's repair or upgrade number two. Okay, number three is overheating. These are known for overheating big time, especially if you're towing, and I do a lot of towing. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, if this is a 95K 3500 dually. So I think in like 97, maybe 98 and newer, they already changed this. But in the older ones, like 94, 95, maybe 96, they came with a low flow water pump. It only pushed 80 gallons per hour. And you can upgrade, get a water pump for like a 99 truck. They bolt on the same. The only thing that's different are the impellers, the internal parts that paddle the wheel or the coolant. So instead of flowing 80 gallons per hour, now you can flow 130 gallons per hour. So you have a lot more volume flowing to the radiator to cool off faster. So swap that out. Second thing is my truck came with one thermostat. So this is the original thermostat housing for my truck, and there's only one thermostat. Again, maybe 98, 97 or newer, they came with two thermostats. But the reason you want two thermostats is because now that you have more volume flowing through your cooling system, it all has to flow through your upper radiator and through your thermostat and down to your block and your radiator. And this is a choke point. So they got two thermostats. Now you can flow twice as much volume that you need to get that coolant to flow so you can stay nice and cold. So take this off, throw in the garbage, buy yourself a dual thermostat housing, and run 195 degree thermostats. You don't want 180 because 180 degrees, that's not operating temperature. And if your truck can't get up to operating temperature, then it's not going to run as well, it won't be as fuel efficient. So run 195 degree thermostats, that's what you want. The other bad part about this is the fitting on the bottom right here. And this fitting, there's a little hose, your water pump sits here, and this little hose connects the two. Well, this will allow hot coolant to flow straight back to the engine, and we don't want that. So this is the fitting that goes right here, and you can see how big that diameter is of the fitting. Well, they sell different fittings with a reducer, and it's much, much smaller inner diameter, so a lot less coolant will flow back to your engine. We don't want that hot coolant to go back to the engine. We want it to go to the radiator to cool off. So change this fitting out to a reducer and change this to a dual thermostat. Okay, the other problem is the radiator. The radiator on these from the factory are insufficient. They're not big enough to cool off this truck, especially when you're towing. So I went with a couple different radiators, and I went with the all aluminum style, and I went through 4 of them, and every one I got, after about 1,000 miles, they leaked, and it was really frustrating. In 5 months, I had to take this radiator in and out 6 times, and it was ridiculous. So finally, I said, no more all aluminum radiators because they're clearly garbage. I found a Peterbilt radiator company that would custom build me a radiator for my 6.5. So this truck has a Peterbilt radiator in it. I had to do some fabrication and modification to make it work, but this radiator is awesome. It's huge. It weighs 50 pounds. The cooling capacity is incredible, and I never ever overheat. So upgrade your radiator big time. And then the last thing for overheating is the cooling fan. The stock cooling fan, it's a joke. You know, it's made for like a 4-cylinder or something. It's not made for a hot diesel engine. So take off your cooling fan, throw it out, and you have 2 options for upgrades for cooling fans. One, you could buy another mechanical fan which bolts onto the water pump and it's belt driven, and you can get that from a Duramax engine that has more blades, and the pitch of the blades are more aggressive, so it'll pull more air through the radiator. You can do the Duramax fan, or I went with electronic fans. I have twin 16-inch electronic cooling fans, and it came as a kit, and it's got a sensor, and when the sensor gets too hot, it closes the contacts, and that's the ground, and now the fans kick on automatically. I never have to think about it, and it does great. It really cools off the truck really fast. So I like the electronic ones, but I also have air conditioning, and there's no way, when I turn on my air conditioning, there's no way for the cooling fan to know that I just turned on my AC. So you have to wire in a separate toggle switch to manually turn on your fans whenever you want. So now, before I turn on my AC, I turn on my cooling fans, then I turn on my AC, and then I don't have any problems. Because if you don't run your cooling fans with your air conditioning on, nothing is going to be cooling off your AC system, so temperatures are going to go up. And when temperatures go up, pressures go up, and that's when you're going to blow something, an O-ring, or maybe the pressure relief valve on the back of the compressor or something like that. So you want to make sure, if you have an AC system and you choose to go the electronic cooling fan route, you want to make sure that you can manually turn on your fans. Okay, So number 4 in making your truck bulletproof are the electronics, and we're going to start with the PMD. This is the PMD, or pump mounted driver. This is probably the most problematic thing on the whole truck. If you have any kind of drivability problem, look at this first. So the job of this is like the fuel control module, and it tells the injector pump when to fire and how much to fire, how much fuel to deliver to each cylinder. So this is the brain of your fuel system. And so what you want to do is buy a quality one. Don't skimp on this. This is critical. So buy a quality one. I bought mine from Quadstar Tuning, and I got most all these parts from either Quadstar Tuning or Leroy's Diesel. You go to either one of those websites and you can find whatever you want to find. Really great companies. But this PMD, or fuel control module, is the most problematic thing on the truck. If you run into any drivability problems, I would look at this first. So this one is an old one. This only lasted me 6 months, and what this was doing is I would randomly stall out. I could be doing 70 miles an hour, I could be doing 20 miles an hour, I could be rolling up to a stop sign with my foot on the brake pedal, and it would stall out. And also, at times I had no throttle response. I could romp on that gas pedal all I wanted, and like nothing would happen. I would have to pull over, turn off the truck, start it up again, and then fortunately I was able to carry on my way. But so these are, keep a spare. Get a quality one, install it, but keep a spare in your glove box, your center console, because these are very, very problematic. But what you want to do for these is get a relocation kit, because these get hot, and this is mounted onto the injector pump. So it sits in the valley of the engine block, and you have your injector pump, and this bolts onto the driver's side of the injector pump, and it just cooks itself. Because this by itself will naturally get hot. This will generate heat all by itself. So you put a hot electrical component inside the valley of a hot engine, and it'll cause all kinds of weird drivability problems, check engine light, maybe no check engine light, but very problematic. So get a relocation kit, and that'll come with a PMD. It'll come with a long wire harness, basically an extension cord. And then it'll also get a resistor. It may or may not come with a resistor, but you want to get a resistor to put in this connector. And they're numbered. This is a number 5 resistor. They usually come with a number 5 and a number 9. And the bigger the number, the more fuel that will be delivered to your engine. So if you use a number 9 resistor, it's going to put a lot of fuel in that engine. I put in a number 5 in here, so it delivers a moderate amount of fuel. That's just what I prefer. And it's also going to come with a cooling tower, the relocation kit. And the cooling tower, it's a metal plate that you bolt it to the metal plate. It's got a bunch of cooling fins, and so the heat will transfer to the plate and then wick away on the cooling fins. So relocate this, and I put this in the cab of my truck because wintertime, it's cold. This is probably okay, but summertime, some guys like to put them on the front of their bumper, and that's fine, but it might be 100 degrees in the summer. But if you put it in the cab of the truck, I got my AC cranking, it's going to help keep this nice and cool. So, very problematic. Okay, the engine oil pressure switch or sending unit. The reason why this goes bad is because when you turn your key on and start cranking, voltage is going to go from your ignition switch to your engine oil pressure switch and then to your lift pump, your fuel pump. So that engine oil pressure switch isn't really made to handle all of that amperage, and it'll burn up that oil pressure switch, and then you want a fuel pressure, your truck won't start. So I got a remote relay circuit kit, and what this does is that it bypasses that engine oil pressure switch, and now when I turn the key on, it sends voltage straight to the lift pump. And the other thing that's cool about this kit, and I think I got it from Leroy's Diesel, is that from the factory, when you turn the key on, the lift pump does not function. It only functions when you crank, so you have a little bit longer crank. What's nice about the remote relay kit is that when you turn the key on, you have to wait because your glow plugs are warming up. Well, while your glow plugs are warming up, your fuel pump is now building pressure. So when you go to start, it starts right up and it starts faster. So that's a big deal. Let's see. The other thing that I did on your injector pump, it comes with this little harness. This is a filter. It's an electronic filter. Take this off and throw it in the garbage. It leaves more opportunity for something to fail, and you don't need it. I took this off about 8,000 miles ago. Haven't had a single bit of problem, so I would recommend taking this off. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about fuel delivery. The lift pump. The lift pump from the factory sucks. Okay, the lift pump is not in the tank. It's under the truck on the driver's side frame rail. And the job of the lift pump is to suck fuel out of the tank and then push fuel to the engine. Okay, but from the factory, it only delivers 4 pounds of pressure. It's very minor. It's ridiculous. You should have at least double that. You should have at least 8 pounds. So buy a high-performance lift pump and install it. You don't want to starve your injector pump. So feed that injector pump as much fuel as you can. You need 2 things for any pump. You need pressure and you need volume. So get rid of that factory lift pump. It's just going to starve your injector pump, and then your injector pump is going to fail faster. So get a high-performance lift pump and install it. Okay. The fuel filter, this is on the top of the engine, the back of the block. From the factory, again, it sucks. It's rated at 14 microns, which means it can only filter out big particles, big pieces of dirt. But all the little pieces of dirt are going to pass right through and get into your injector pump and get into your injectors and cause you problems. So I would recommend installing a secondary fuel filter. Some of them can filter it down to 4 microns, and some of them can filter it down to 2 microns. But you definitely want to filter out that fuel system as much as possible. Okay, and then lastly for fuel delivery is fuel additives. So our fuel has very low sulfur. It's ultra low sulfur diesel because sulfur, it's a high pollutant. It's bad for the environment, so the government took it out of the diesel. Which is great for the environment, but sulfur is a lubricant for diesel components. So now there's no lubricant going to your lift pump, going to your injector pump, and going to your injectors. There's no lubricant. So this is for all diesels, not just 6.5s. I recommend adding some kind of lubricant. I use Howe's Diesel Treat year-round. I use it, this is a 27-gallon fuel tank. I put in 10 ounces every time I fill up. Modern trucks, modern diesels, they have all kinds of government emissions. You have to buy DEF, diesel exhaust fluid. Well, if you have a 6.5, you don't have to buy DEF. So instead, might as well buy fuel additive. Add it every time to the tank right before you fill up. It'll prolong the life of your whole fuel system. And it also, the Howe's Diesel Treat, it removes water. And water is bad because in the winter it can freeze and your truck won't start because you don't have fuel flow. And it'll prevent also mold and algae from growing inside your fuel tank. So I use it every time I fill up. Okay, number 6 on how to make your 6.5 awesome, the turbo. The turbo from the factory has a bad component, and that is the wastegate actuator. It's vacuum operated, it's very problematic, it's not reliable, you're going to lose boost, and it just sucks. So what I did, I took off the vacuum pump, which is belt driven. It's on the passenger side on my 95. I took that out, I threw it in the garbage, and I put in a mechanical linkage that's spring loaded, and now I can adjust it manually. And I think mine is called a Turbo Master, I think it's called. But I got that, and now I can adjust it exactly how I want. So get rid of that old vacuum operated lift pump vacuum pump, and just throw it in the garbage. But now you have one less pulley for your serpentine belt to travel. So your serpentine belt is going to be way too loose. You can't use the same belt. So you have to use a different belt. And I found the perfect belt. I tried a few of them. The belt number I got it from Napa. Here's the Napa belt number, 061005. That's the perfect belt that I found for my truck after I removed that vacuum pump. So when you have that TurboMaster or whatever kind of brand you want to go with to adjust that wastegate, and the wastegate is just an exit door. So when you have enough boost built up, that wastegate or exit door is going to open and allow exhaust to flow out there instead of continuing to build boost pressure. It'll help protect the engine from damage. Now if you have a stock ECM, you don't want to adjust that turbo boost way high. If you adjust it to like 10 or 12 pounds of boost, well, now your engine is going to derate because your factory PCM is going to say, whoa, wait, we got way too much boost. Let's derate the engine. Let's deliver less fuel to protect the engine from harm. So, if you put it on, if you put a manual wastegate linkage on there and you crank it down so that you have a lot of boost, well, now you're going to be out romping on it and you'll be like, I have no power, but I have 10 pounds of boost. What's going on? Well, that's because you have a stock ECM and it's derating. So if your ECM or PCM is still stock, no tuner, no adjustments made, then you don't want any more than 6 pounds of boost. That's the maximum that you want. So do yourself a favor, more boost is not always better. So once you have a tuner, then you can turn up your boost, but not until then. Okay, so that is how to make it bulletproof. Okay, that's how to make it really reliable. I've done all those upgrades on this truck and it's super reliable. I drive a ton every day. So here's some improvements I would recommend. Now that you've made all the bulletproofing corrections, the engine needs to breathe, right? We inhale through the air filter and we exhale through the exhaust. So the air filter assemblies on these, again, garbage, garbage, garbage. Rip it out, throw it in the garbage. I got a cold air intake from S&B, and it's kind of like a K&N filter. You have to, blow it out, wash it with a hose, oil it, clean it, all that stuff. And it just allows your engine to inhale and take in more air, send it to the turbo so that the turbo can charge it and ram it down into the engine. So air filter assembly, get it out of there, get a better one. But now that you're breathing in more, you have to exhale more. And the exhaust from the factory, again, very restrictive. So I bought a 4-inch turbo to tailpipe exhaust with a muffler. And I installed that, and now my exhaust flow is twice as good. I mean, it just flows really nice. So now my engine can breathe. The other upgrade on the turbo is the wheel. This is the compressor wheel. This is the fresh air side of the turbo. And I replaced this. I got a Wicked wheel, and you could take the front of the housing off of the turbo and take off the old one and put on the new one. And the new one is designed to make it run, this is for the stock turbo, is to make it run more efficient. And when you put this on, you're not going to notice like a whole lot of power. You're not going to be like, wow, I can't believe how much power I'm getting. The job of this, to upgrade this, is to make it run more efficiently, make the turbo more efficient. We want to keep those exhaust temperatures down, and that'll help with this. So this replacing this turbo wheel will make it more efficient. Now, the other thing is this upper air intake plenum. And this is also garbage. So you have the turbo building air, pushing air here. Well, now the air slams into this dead end, slams into this dead end, and then falls into the engine. And it's real thin. It gets pancaked. So this causes friction in the incoming air. And so we don't want that because that's going to increase our intake air temperature and it's going to increase our exhaust temperatures. So I replaced this one, and I got both of these parts replacement one of these and a new wicked wheel from QuadStar Tuning. And in order to replace this, you have to take this off. So you might as well replace them at the same time. That's what I did. Okay, now, the other things I recommend are 3 gauges. One is the boost gauge, exhaust temperature gauge, and transmission temperature gauge. Your boost gauge will tell you how much boost your turbo's putting out. And then you can adjust it if you have a boost gauge. You can adjust your wastegate, your manual linkage, and then drive your truck, floor it, see how much boost pressure you're getting, and then you can adjust it accordingly. The other one is your exhaust gas temperature gauge. And this is critical because this will prevent you from damaging your engine. So if your exhaust is running hot, then damage can happen. You could blow a head gasket, you could crack your heads, you could melt or damage your turbo. Lots of bad stuff can happen. So you want to make sure you know exactly how hot your exhaust is. Because with diesel, the more you step on the gas pedal, the more fuel is being delivered. And the more fuel that's delivered, the hotter your exhaust. So I tow a lot, and here in Colorado, I climb some mountains sometimes, while I'm towing. And so I'm romping on that pedal, so there's lots of fuel going in the engine, which means my exhaust is really hot. So I don't want my exhaust to get too hot. So when I see it creeping up to about, 1100 degrees, I will pull over and I won't shut the key off. I'll pull it over, put it in park, let it idle, because if you turn the key off while it's hot, everything's going to get hotter because it's actually going to heat soak. So we don't want that. So pull over if you need to, and let it idle. Let it idle for 5 or 10 minutes. That way, your cooling fan is working, your water pump is working, and it's pushing coolant to your radiator. Your oil pump is working and pushing oil to your cooler. Your transmission pump is working and moving that fluid to the cooler. So it's real important to get an exhaust temperature gauge because you don't want to damage anything. So, put it right on the pillar, and I'm always looking at my speed, my exhaust temperature, my boost pressure. I'm looking at all these things as I'm towing. And the other one is the transmission temperature gauge. Same thing. You don't want your transmission to overheat. You want to know how hot that's getting. Okay, so next, now that you've done all this stuff, now that you've bulletproofed it, you've made some improvements, yep, it's going to cost you money, yep, it's going to cost you time, but now you have a truck that's going to last you. I'm planning on this thing lasting me at least 300,000. I've restored this truck over the last couple of months, and I love it. It's great. But now that we've done all that stuff, now we can get a tuner. Now we can really unleash the performance of this truck. Because again, from the factory, the PCM or ECM isn't really tuned. It's tuned to give you some power, but not very much, so that, while it's under factory warranty, nothing breaks and GM doesn't have to pay for it. But, so now that we've done all those upgrades and improvements, now we can send out our PCM. So if you have a 96 or newer, that's OBD2, Onboard Diagnostics 2. So you're probably going to have to remove your PCM, send it out, they can reprogram it, mail it back, plug it in. But mine's a 95. So if you have a 95 or older, that's OBD1. Or Onboard Diagnostics 1. And so for me, I got a adjustable tuner, again from QuadStar, and that's where I just plug it into my PCM. It's got a remote, and it's got different modes. One's for heavy hauling, one's for regular towing, one's for performance, all kinds of different options. So really cool, but wait to do your PCM upgrades or tuners last. Make the truck ready for it. Because if you don't make it ready for it and you can just throw a tuner in there, you're going to break stuff. And lastly, you're going to need a good scan tool. So about a month ago, I put an injector pump in this. It didn't need one, but this truck's a 95 and it's 2024, so it's almost 30 years old. And it's stock. It's the original pump. So I just wanted to change it out just for good peace of mind and get a fresh pump in there. But once you replace these pumps, you have to relearn the timing and the top dead center, and you can't do that without a scan tool. So it took me a while, but I found this scan tool, and this connector plugs into the truck, and this connector plugs into my laptop. So now my laptop is a scan tool, but there's two parts to this. One is, so the cable, Google this. I got this at OBD Diagnostics Inc. That's where you get the cable. And they sell them for OBD1, OBD2, and no matter what year you got, I'm pretty sure they got a cable for you. And then the software, so that the computer can communicate with the truck, I got the software from gmtdscan.com. So you have to get the cable and the software, two different places, but they'll work together. And then your laptop is a powerful tool. You can adjust your timing, your top dead center. I could turn on and off injectors to help me diagnose problems. I could read and clear codes. I could drive down the road and look at data. So really cool. But do all that stuff and you're going to have a great truck. I mean, these things are awesome. I mean, once you get all the bugs worked out and all the improvements made, you're going to have a great truck. This is really dependable. It's really strong. I love it. And I love these 6.5s. They're a forgotten muscle of the road. And I love seeing them from time to time. And they're just fantastic trucks. So I hope you learned some stuff, and I hope this helps you. And, you know, make your 6.5 awesome, because they're great trucks. Take care.